Hey everyone, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I'm back today with another story for you. So if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so you get alerted when I post new videos. And now on to today's topic. So we had a little vote of a few off-topic stories, and some people voted on a couple of the stories they would like to hear. So this is one of those stories. And this story is from my college fraternity days, and it was one that I wrote a story about many years ago, so I didn't forget all the details because it's pretty hilarious. And the story is titled Catch Me If You Can, the Ultimate Game of Cat and Mouse. So it will start with a little snippet of the story, and then we'll start at the beginning, and it's pretty funny. I'm not going to tell you what fraternity it was or what chapter or location. We'll leave that a little bit on the more mysterious side. So the story well, I'll share one other detail first. I've been nudged a few times by my fraternity buddy and really good friend Cameron to share this story on this channel, and you guys voted for this story also as one of the couple of stories you want to hear. So anyhow, keep in mind at the time of this story, my buddy Cameron was pretty new to the US, and he's from Pakistan. So hilarious guy, great guy. And anyhow, there's some things that happen in the story towards the end that is funny because Cameron was pretty new to the country and still learning a lot of things about our country. So anyhow, creeping quiet as a mouse from the stairwell to the second door, barely ajar, we peered into the room and spotted our friend Cameron, tied up to the chair while his captors played video games in celebratory triumph. We took a deep breath, made eye contact with him, and then stormed the room on the count of 3. It all started in the summer of '93. I hadn't planned to be here, but I was being recruited. I still don't know how they found me. But on one warm summer morning, an unexpected phone call led to a meeting with 2 college seniors, Alan and Ed, who belonged to a particular fraternity. It was a couple of months before my freshman year in college was to start, but that meeting changed everything. The recruitment and initiation had officially began. It was a brotherhood of gifted minds. It was a group of slightly odd but interesting characters. It was a fraternity. It was, and like I said, I'm not going to tell you what fraternity it is. So I was now a member of the new pledge class at the fraternity. There was a select 15 of us vying for membership, and little did we know, we were about to make history. Part 1, Pledge Sneak. As we were introduced to fraternity life, we learned about the granddaddy of them all, Pledge Sneak. Pledge Sneak is a trip taken by the pledge class to another chapter of your fraternity, usually in another state, over a school weekend in the fall. But it isn't quite that simple. It's actually a game of wits against the active members and a rite of passage in the fraternity system. Part 2, the rules. There are a few rules that add some challenges and fun. It is essentially a game of strategy, akin to playing chess. The goal is for the pledge class to secretly orchestrate an elaborate escape from the fraternity house to a close-by chapter without any pledge member getting caught once the clock starts. The escape must start from your fraternity house on a Thursday night. All pledges must attend all of their classes on Friday, and then you escape to your particular chapter you're going to. They must do so as stealthily as possible as to not get caught by any active members after their last class of the day on Friday. If an active member catches a pledge after their last class, they must escort him back to the fraternity house where they need to keep him secured for 2 hours or longer. If they can do this with any member, any pledge class member, then the actives or active members will win the game. The pledges try to avoid being caught and escape to their destination unscathed. If no pledge gets caught, or they are caught and freed in less than 2 hours, then the pledges win. It was very typical at most fraternities that the pledges have never won. They're outnumbered by active members 3-1, or a lot of times more than that when you consider the pledge class are freshmen against sophomores, juniors, seniors, fifth-year seniors. You're way outnumbered by actives. And the actives have been through this process many times at this point, plus they're super familiar with campus and everything. On Friday, all active members will be out actively looking for pledges to capture and bring back to the fraternity house. But as mentioned before, they are not able to capture them until they've attended their last class on Friday. The pledge class must also take along 3 or 4 active members on their sneak, including their pledge educator, who is also an active member upperclassman. They need these older actives, of course, to rent vans that are needed for the trip for all the pledges, and typically the pledges are 18 or 19-year-old freshmen and too young to rent vehicles to go on this trip. Another benefit of taking 3 to 4 actives is that it essentially makes these actives bystanders in the game, yet ready to go at a moment's notice when pledge sneak has arrived. So the selection of these active members is also taken as a strategic pawn in this game, if you're smart anyhow. As we entered our planning phase, we were told many times that no pledge class had ever successfully defeated the actives in sneak. I don't know how many times we heard that all fall. All pledge classes take this game seriously as their pride and membership into the fraternity are on the line. The active members take the game seriously too, as none of them have taken part in a successful sneak as a pledge, and none of them have been defeated by pledges at this point. So they don't want to be responsible for letting the pledges win for the first time. Also, part of the escape plan on Thursday night is to trash the fraternity house as you are escaping. So it's typical for pledges to come back from their sneak on Sunday night, and they will have a mess to clean up from the prior Thursday night. And those extra cleanup chores are typically tacked onto the pledges' chores and duties the following week, and they end up cleaning up the majority of their own mess that they created as they left for sneak. Pledge education. As we were educated in pledge class by our fearless leader, pledge educator John, we learned about our history, our founding fathers, the Greek alphabet, and other important aspects of Greek life. Pledge education class was also the perfect place to lay out the ultimate plan, be the first pledge class to beat the actives at sneak. This is obviously the goal of every pledge class, but every pledge class prior didn't have what we had. The absolute perfect blend of minds, skill, talent, and moxie to pull off the impossible. During the first couple of pledge class meetings, we met many of the active members. This included the scholastic chair, Jeff. By chance, he also happened to be my roommate. All pledges were roommates with an upperclassman. He was in charge, Jeff was in charge of making sure that we were all going to class and earning the necessary grades to become an active member of the fraternity. Jeff had visited us in pledge class early on, and he had us each write out our daily schedules on a 3x5 index card. So he knew when and where we had class and at what times. And he kept these index cards on his desk in a coffee cup in the room we shared. I believe at the point that he had us writing out our schedules, may have even been before we knew about Pledge Sneak. So they made sure to get all of our info ASAP. But Jeff had these cards in a coffee cup on his desk, as I said. So this way he knew if you skipped class and you were at the house playing video games and you shouldn't be. All of this factors into the story shortly, so just keep this in mind. Anyways, the pledge class would meet one night per week to learn and discuss our Greek and pledge class topics and progress towards active membership. After about a month, we had learned enough detail about Pledge Sneak and knew it was time to put the plan together. One thing you needed to know about me is that I'm a quick thinker, especially on the fly and especially under pressure. I'm also an extremely detail-oriented planner, and I leave nothing to chance. Our strong personalities, our skills, our traits, with all the pledge class, those were extremely handy as we crafted this perfect plan. The ruse. A plethora of logistics were involved, so we needed a safe place to store all of our important papers and documents. And we had that perfect place. My safe in my room, which held all my valuable baseball and football cards, and it could also house all of our secrets. Many actives knew this is where our important documents were locked away and tried to lure me away many times when they knew I was getting into my safe. Not to be outsmarted, one time we let them think that their ruse worked and we pretended to fall for their diversion and run into another room. I believe it was some sort of video game related, oh my gosh, check this out, so-and-so got to this level, or something like that. Anyhow, we let them think that it worked. And at that moment, I quickly locked the safe, but I made sure to leave a Texas map with College Station circled, the location of our chapter at Texas A&M. So I left this map out with College Station circled. This was not where we were going to go to sneak, but it caused quite a stir for quite a few days, with many actives making numerous calls to Texas trying to figure out when we were coming. And of course, those fraternity brothers in Texas knew nothing, but all the actives kept trying to crack them and were making calls for a long time. We knew what was going on. We were busting out in laughter. The Pledge Project. During the same fall semester, we were also in charge of a pledge project, as all pledge classes were. Our pledge project was to paint a mural on the entire wall that ran the length of our basement game room. This project also involved a lot of planning, priming of walls, sketching out an elaborate scene, and a lot of detailed paintwork. Our pledge brother Adrian, an architecture major with skills of an artist, he did a heck of a job coming up with a great Egyptian desert scene. This awesome design had pyramids, camels, a great sphinx, all embedded with fraternity logos in them in particular places. Adrian is a very talented and artsy person, so he took over directing and basically handled the project management to keep things on track and make sure everyone was doing things to his liking. He had to keep us in line and keep us progressing towards completing this mural by Parents' Weekend in October. We had a lot on our plate as new college students. Our schedule was full with classes, studying, exams, completing our pledge project, and sneak to plan and try to pull off successfully. These factors probably account for the fact that no other pledge class has ever pulled it off successfully up to this point. We hope to have stories be told about us in our legendary sneak for years to come. The fake schedules. Now remember, I roomed with the Scholastic chair, Jeff. I came up with a plan to use Jeff as a pawn again. Remember, we already used him as a ruse in the Texas A&M map situation. I made sure that we started by having everyone fill out a new 3x5 index card with fake schedules on it in our pledge class meeting. I advised everyone to make sure that they placed themselves getting out of their last class later than they really did on Friday, and also as far away from their real last class as possible. But I advise them to keep the classes the same, as they do check on your grade progress reports periodically, and we didn't want anything to look suspicious. We knew there were a couple of people that they would actively focus on for hopeful, easy capture. Smaller guys and less observant guys were going to be keyed in on faster than the bigger pledge brothers. Those people were advised to fill their fake schedules out like they were getting out of their last class on the other campus. So the college we went to had two campuses that were just a couple of miles apart. So we told those brothers, fill out your schedules, stating you're getting out of classes at a building on the other campus. So this would take a huge chunk of the active members effectively out of the search and out of our real danger zone. Logistics. Now, here we needed to make sure we knew all of our real logistics as to who, when, where they were really getting out of class on Friday. We needed to implement a buddy system since there are safety in numbers. We also needed a meeting point, so we selected a little used top floor of the brand new parking garage at the south end of campus. This also provided an elevated vantage point for the south end of campus. Our fraternity house was at the north end of campus, so this also put us a safe distance away from the house. Next, we needed to coordinate who was getting out of class in buildings next to each other and who would be able to meet up quickly and walk back to the meeting spot together. 2 or 3 pledges walking together are much harder to capture than one single person. We also had pledges avoid the heavily trafficked areas where they would be most likely to encounter active members. If someone was captured out of a group of 2 or 3, the escaping pledge or pledges would be able to run to the meeting point and alert us very quickly so we could hatch an escape plan. Now with the logistics in place, we knew whom should arrive at the garage, with whom they should arrive, and at what time they should be arriving, and many other important details. This was not left to chance, and it was all written down on a checklist so that we could check people off as they arrived at the meeting place. Now that the master plan was in place, we traded out our real schedule index cards on Jeff's desk for the fakes that we created in the pledge class. And I believe we locked the real ones in my safe. We knew that the actives would rely on Jeff to locate all the pledges coming out of their last class on Friday, as he's supposed to know all of their schedules. The big problem. With all of this planning, we still had one major problem. Our pledge brother Cameron had his last class on Friday afternoon with another active member, Brad. This doesn't usually happen. Brad was a sophomore, as was Cameron, since it was not Cameron's first year in college like the rest of us. Brad also knew that this was Cameron's last class of the day on Friday afternoon. I believe they might have walked back to the house together at times after class, so he knew. So we were at a disadvantage here. We knew immediately that he would get a few active members to help him capture Cameron and drag him back to the fraternity house. We needed a solution to this situation. It was too risky to send a bunch of pledges, as there were likely to be a lot of actives there to reel in Cameron and anyone else that they saw as easy fish. We knew they would capture him, and we knew that he would end up back at the house secured, a little while after class. There wasn't much Cameron was going to be able to do about this situation, as Brad would be able to inform other active members exactly where to wait. We needed a spy to watch the situation unfold and report back to us quickly. A spy was set to survey the situation from a safe distance, I believe from the bushes. Now, with all of this planning in place, it was getting close to our sneak weekend. We established a nightly routine of being in the basement every night, putting finishing touches on our pledge project mural. And as the actives came and went from the basement, checking on us and our progress, they suspected nothing, as we were all there doing what we were supposed to be doing, and it appeared that we were working on the mural. Nothing appeared to be suspicious to them. They figured we wanted our mural to be perfect for the upcoming parents' visit weekend, and Adrian came up with all kinds of minor details that were still supposedly being worked on or being finished. Adrian was pretty adept at talking above their understanding with artist jargon and vocabulary that elicited weak head nods of agreement from the actives about the finishing touches that still needed to be made. His skill at creating confusion and uneasiness amongst the actives, and the fact that they didn't really want to appear uneducated on this particular matter, led to them showing up less and less in the basement as the week rolled on. Plus, the actives thought there was no way that we could be going on sneak that upcoming weekend, because that was parents' weekend and all the parents were coming. So little did they know that was the exact reason we were going that weekend, because they would not suspect it. It's go time. Thursday night, we were all in the basement as usual. We knew this was finally it. It was go time. Our mural had essentially been done for quite a few days, and we had just milked it and tried to look busy. I mean, how do you basically clean paintbrushes for a week and still look busy? But guess what? We did it, and they didn't suspect a thing. Back to sneak. It was about 10:30 or 11 p.m. on Thursday night when we knew it was finally go time. There was no longer any activity by any of the actives in the house, and they had come and gone from the basement earlier in the night, at least the couple of them that had been down there. But they all appeared to be in bed at this point. And one thing I think I forgot to denote in the original story. So we have a pool table downstairs in the game room. We took the box of the pool balls and we hid them up in the ceiling, so while we were gone they wouldn't be able to play pool. Our bags were already packed in our cars. Our adrenaline was pumping as we hit the side stairwell to the kitchen, and we raided the fridge of the large commercial-sized containers of condiments, and we left a trail of ranch dressing, ketchup, and mustard up and down both of the side stairwells. Of course, these are concrete steps, so not too hard to clean up. We also had a few lengths of rope for an extra surprise. All of the bedrooms were up and down a couple of hallways on floors 2 and 3, and everyone closed their doors at night, so this made this part of the plan extra clever. We quietly coordinated a simultaneous effort on both of the floors to go at the same time, and what we did was we tied rope around the first doorknob in the hallway, and then ran the rope down to the next doorknob, looped it around a couple of times, tightened it, ran it down to the next one, and did that essentially all the way down the hallway and tied it onto the last door. So this effectively locked all the actives in their rooms. So there was one door we didn't tie, but instead we carried some bricks in from the construction out in the parking lot, and we bricked in one of the doorways. So later on, we were told that everybody panicked on Friday morning as they could not get out of their rooms. They called each other on their dorm phones, and they tried to figure out who could get out. And eventually, one of the actives discovered that their door was only bricked in, and they could push the bricks down, and they could escape and untie the other doors. At this point, it was obvious. The pledge sneak was already in progress. These unplanned morning delays caused major chaos in the actives' morning routines, and the effect was that their disheveled selves were in no position to come up with an adequate capture plan until after they ran off behind schedule to their own Friday classes, and their Confusion that Friday morning was to our advantage, as it kept their early planning and calculating to a minimum, putting the plan into action. After our escape from the fraternity house Thursday night, we had spent the early morning hours at our pledge brother Jason's farm just outside of town. We slept little that Thursday night, and we went over the plan many times as our adrenaline pulsed through our veins. Friday morning before class, we brought the vans for the trip to the parking garage and parked them at the top level at our meeting point. The vans would now act as our headquarters. If you didn't have class until later in the morning, you would be in one of the vans waiting to go to class or going over your part of the plan. Now it was time to use the buddy system to get to and from class safely. 14 of us made it unscathed and unnoticed. Yes, there were 15 of us, so we did have a problem. Our spy arrived and informed us that Cameron, the last pledge to get out of class at 2:20 p.m., luckily he was the last one, he was being captured as we spoke. We were told that he was putting up a heck of a fight as he was handcuffed, dragged, and carried off with one of the actives on each one of his limbs as he was stuffed in an awaiting car. We knew they would leave him at the house with a couple of guards once secured, and they would go back out to hunt for more pledges that they thought were still in class. The actives had recounted stories of captures from previous sneaks, so we knew exactly how they would handle this part. They just didn't realize they had already told us. We knew all the actives would be out hunting for pledges since they didn't capture anyone else, and the schedule still showed many of the pledges were yet to get out of class, so they would be lying in wait. Also, we knew there would be a huge number of actives on the other campus looking for Jed and Kevin, who of course were nowhere near that campus and were already out of class by this point. Prison break. Around 3:30 in the afternoon, the whole crew pulled up in the vans and backed them into parking spots in front of the now quiet fraternity house. We entered the house and listened for activity as we crept up the south stairwell, being sure to avoid the ketchup, mustard, and ranch trails up and down the stairs. Of course, we heard a little activity on the second floor, just 2 doors from the stairwell. The rest of the house was completely quiet. That door was barely ajar, and we gathered to have a peek inside. We could see 3 skinny actives, all sophomore active members, engulfed in video games. They were guarding Cameron, who was now tied up to a chair and was sitting behind them. The 3 actives were oblivious to what was about to happen, as they were totally engulfed and engaged in their video game competition. We gathered some more rope from the hallway, as there was plenty of it laying around from the door tying antics. We had someone hold the stairwell door open for quick escape, and we had drivers waiting in the vans. We peered in again, and Cameron made eye contact with us. His eyes were as big as saucers, and his smile was so large that you could see him holding back laughter in anticipation of what was about to happen. He held his composure. We counted to 3, and then we stormed the room. We had those 3 skinny actives tied up before they could put up a fight or even muster what the heck had just happened to them. Cameron had an instant adrenaline rush, and he spouted out something at the time as we were running out of the room. It was something like, "Yeah, in your face!" And the laughter was instantaneous from all of us as we fled the room and everyone ran for the stairwell. We surmised that they sent all of the big guys out to capture more pledges and didn't think to leave any bigger guards behind. We had tied them loosely enough so they could escape within a few minutes, knowing we would be long gone by then. And I'm sure they had a hard time explaining to the rest of the actives what in the heck had just happened. These were the days before college students had cell phones, so there was no immediate aid for them. The final escape. Cameron was only captured and secured for less than an hour before we freed him. So we had won the game and we escaped. No one had ever done that up to this point in our fraternity. We could now hit the road for our nearby chapter in Colorado and celebrate. We left the actives with no choice but to clean up the trash house and make the house presentable for Parents' Weekend. They were upset because they had to clean it this time. We laughed all the way to Colorado and told stories. Even the active members that came with us gave us kudos for all the planning and the perfect logistical execution. What added to the laughter was the fact that all of the actives that we brought had plenty of stories of everybody freaking out on Friday morning or waiting to capture pledges coming out of buildings that they were nowhere near. They also enjoyed the organized chaos that we created. As we stopped for some burgers at a sit-down restaurant, I believe it was like a steakhouse in the middle of nowhere off of the interstate, Cameron had us all in stitches again, as he was asked by the waitress how he wanted his burger cooked. Cameron, who had not been in this country very long at this point, was not sure what they meant. He said, "I want it normal." And the laughter ensued again as we determined he wanted it well done, but he had no clue what that meant. College was loaded with great times, funny stories, and lifetime friends. I'm not sure if Sneak still exists in the degree that it did in the 80s and 90s, but man, it was one heck of an enjoyable game of cat and mouse. I will forever remember the good times and the lifetime friendships forged. I still keep in regular communication with Cameron and Adrian. Thanks for listening, guys, and if you have any comments, you can leave them in the comments.